you gave very recently a major speech in Australia, and you quoted in that speech really powerful comments from Martin Luther King. And since it is Martin Luther King Day in the United States, I thought we would open with it. And it is, "We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools." And I think it speaks to why we're all here, and I would just love to know your thoughts, that quote from 1964, how it speaks to you 60 years later.
Well, thank you. First of all, it's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the beautiful cover that you did. It spoke to me when I was making that speech, and speaks to me now, because I see the world clouded in tension. There are too many things that are not going right, not going the way we would want it. You know, we've all had the pandemic. We've had now the war in Ukraine, climate change. Every day we hear about one place or the other that is either suffering from drought or is suffering from flooding. Geopolitical tensions are very high. When you look at all of this, and multilateralism, and I know I have some colleagues from other multilateral institutions here, like Kristalina, multilateralism is under attack. Or maybe not under attack, but there's a kind of skepticism about it. And I think to myself, so many of the problems we have to solve today are problems of the global commons. There's no one country that can solve them alone. We need cooperation to solve these problems. We need multilateralism. That's why I said that thing spoke to me, because we either will cooperate with each other, and I'm not naive. I know there's strategic competition, but we must also know when to have strategic cooperation. So if we don't cooperate on the things that matter together, then we're going to perish together. That's how it speaks to me, and I think it's so relevant to the geopolitics of today.
How do you think about it? You run the WTO, an organization devoted to cooperation in an area, global trade, that seems to be the opposite of global cooperation more and more every day. How are you bringing that vision to life? You've been in the job almost 2 years.
Yeah.
How are you seeing that play out at the WTO? Are there signs of optimism?
Well, let me say this. If there's any organization where some of these geopolitical tensions play out on a daily basis, it's the WTO. Whether it's China-US, China-EU, EU-US, Russia-Ukraine, every day we live these tensions. We also live North and South tensions, developing countries versus developed. And there's a tremendous lack of trust. So you say, how do you then do things together in such an environment? Well, with the kind of optimism that I have, when I came in, I saw there were many things that were not happening. And we needed to change this. We needed to start trying to rebuild trust. For the reasons I said, we have to cooperate together to deliver. Look at the food crisis, the energy crisis we're in, sustainability issues. If we don't work together, we can't make it. So last year, and this will be news to many people, for the first time after 2 decades or more of trying to negotiate multilateral agreements and failing, guess what? In June, we had a ministerial meeting where we succeeded in negotiating several agreements, of which 3 legally binding, meaning that China, US, Ukraine, Russia, everybody was around the table. And I say to people, we're probably one of the few or the only multilateral organization to have legally binding agreements signed in today with all the tension with all these actors around the table, it means multilateralism can work, and we should support it.
What's your secret? What's your secret? How did that come together? How did you get all of
My
that?
secret is bloody-mindedness. Just saying to them, we are going to make a success out of this because we don't have a choice. We've got to demonstrate that there are places in this world where the entire world can sit around the table and come to an agreement.